Hello friends, this is Christopher Smaka, Director of Vital Ways School for Holistic Herbalism, and we're in beautiful Portland, Oregon, and we operate a free clinic at Vital Ways. We also have a public apothecary where people can come in and get health coach sessions. And so we also train students to be clinical herbalists and health coaches. So we work a lot with health. We research it, we evolve our understanding daily. We use traditional wisdom combined with the cutting edge of what's coming off the leading edge of what health is. And we're getting a lot of questions about what to do about the coronavirus. So we want to share with you what we think is some trustworthy perspectives and ideas that will hopefully help you and your family make decisions. And as always, none of what we say is medical advice. You should always talk to your medical provider and run it through your own levels of evidence. But what we're about to tell you, we will let you know the confidence levels of what we think about, because there's three interesting pieces to this. Number one is it's a novel virus. It's never been seen before in humans. It went from animals to humans. And so this is happening more and more, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so that's number one. So nobody, anywhere, no matter what they're trying to sell you, has an actual solution that's worked in reality. The most valuable interventions are ones that we know work, and we don't know what works right now. So we'll give you our best ideas. Number two, the virus infects people, 83% of people, without causing too much debility. So they walk around and they're communicable before they're even symptomatic. So sometimes people get just a scratchy throat and a little bit of a cough, and they don't know that what they have is beyond just the regular cold. It's actually this COVID-19. So that's not great. Also, it is spread through droplets. It doesn't get airborne, so you can't breathe it in, and that's good news. But it becomes on droplets when it's coughed up. And so coughed up, spit up, sneezed, someone touches their mouth and touches a surface, it can live on that surface, well, it's called being viable, for 7 to 14 days. So it's new, no one's treated it. People walk around and can share it without knowing they are, and they don't really feel like they're very sick, and it persists in the environment. Those are all challenges to us that we have to deal with. Now, for 17% of the population, they can have a much more severe condition where it leaves the upper respiratory and starts to enter into lower respiratory. Now, those people have a tendency to have immunocompromised situations, either because of their age or because of pre-existing conditions. So those are the people who are most vulnerable. The ones who are dying are generally people in those categories. So we'll talk about how those people can evaluate or develop a plan. And we'll talk about what we can do for all of us so we don't personally become vectors. And if we do think that we have the condition, some simple steps we can do to avoid sharing it. Now, our approach at Vital Ways is based on what makes sense, based on all of the information we understand about health. First things first, let's think about our nutritional approach, then we'll think about our herbal approach, and then we'll think about our lifestyle approach, because all three are so valuable. Nutrition, we think about three main things to include. And before we get into that, let's talk about the value of an intervention. This is really important when considering health in general. This will be valuable for you. Number one is the value of anything that we're choosing to do for our health is based on how effective that thing is at accomplishing our goals. And now it's minus the challenge, difficulty, cost of that intervention. So if something is very effective, but it costs a lot or we can't get it, then it's not very valuable. But if something is very effective and it doesn't take much to actually get it or take it or use it, then it's very effective. The last piece of that formula, and this will all be in the blog, written up in the blog, is minus the side effects or unwanted effects. Okay, so that's our total equation. Now let's first discuss vitamins. Vitamins are the nutritional aspect of this condition. I think is probably the most powerful from all the things that we're going to choose to do, and then maybe tied with lifestyle, and then herbs supplement that. Now let's talk about vitamins A, C, and D. Those are the three immune system vitamins for this condition that many people are either completely deficient in, or they are deficient enough that their body could do better with just a simple intervention. So vitamin A, you can get that in a synthesized form, and that is good for vegans and vegetarians as well as people that eat meat. And the issue, and the reason I say that is because Getting a preformed vitamin A, which is the retinol, retinols, the ones our bodies use, is challenging. Well, it's impossible in a vegetarian diet or a complete vegan diet because it's not in plant foods. So what you have to do is you get the beta carotene, you get carotenoids or beta carotene, and that converts if you have the right genes, if you have the right health and metabolism. Now, for a person who's a meat eater or an animal eater, there are a lot of sources of vitamin A, but not all sources. They're not created equal. I'll put a list of those sources in the blog, but it can be challenging. So if you want to supplement in this situation, what's generally recommended in our community is 10,000. Turn your phone off before you start making a video. But secondly is, hopefully it doesn't keep going, is 10,000 to 20,000 IUs of, usually it's retinol palmitate, per day for 3 to 4 days. Some people go as high as 50, some people go as high as 100,000 for 3 or 4 days, and they feel amazing in response. A lot of people feel vitamin A, particularly as most people are walking around in a semi-deficient or deficient state. Very valuable for this condition. The second vitamin we want to get into is vitamin C. And there's a form that I like the most, and that's called liposomal vitamin C. This is a brand I really like. It's for sale at New Seasons. If you're here in Portland, you can get it online. It's a 40% sale right now, I think I just read. And so really good time to go online. I don't get any financial benefit from recommending any of the products I'll talk about today. No financial relationship, but I love this one. Also, the liposomal vitamin C I'm going to share with you, again, back at the blog, back on the website, is going to be I'll give you a link to be able to make your own liposomal vitamin C. Now, for prevention, we recommend 5 grams spread out through the day. For addressing a condition once you have it, 15 grams. If you try a if you try a non-liposomal vitamin C, you will get bowel intolerance, you'll get kind of soft stools and possibly some cramping and other stuff. Liposomal, you can go that high. So I have seen amazing things with liposomal vitamin C, going far beyond immune function into wound healing and scar tissue changes, and working with arthritis, and working with oxidative stress, and working with brain fog that accompanies toxicity and detoxification, so much more. I love vitamin C. I'm a big fan of Linus Pauling, is one of my heroes who champion vitamin C. I recommend that you get some good liposomal vitamin C if you want to boost your immune function to resist this condition or address it should it become part of your experience. Okay. Thirdly, vitamin D. I don't need to go too deeply into that. You really want your vitamin D levels to be between the 60 and 80 nanograms per milliliter in your blood. Most health insurances will now support I think probably all will support a vitamin D level test. It's usually incorporated now in most blood tests. And so your average person, well, there's a reason that this is a seasonal condition. Your average person's vitamin D level is so low at this moment that if they were a child with developing bones, they would get rickets. That's how bad it is. So what we need to do is, in most cases, because it's challenging to get it through food, unless you're eating organ meats and stuff like that. And so what I would recommend is that for most people, fish oil, of course, or cod liver oil will have some, but I would recommend that a supplement of 5,000 to 10,000 IUs per day until you get your blood levels up that high. And you can always do more. The representations of vitamin D toxicity are misrepresented, I should say. So I wouldn't worry too much about going even higher on that. Just keep an eye on your numbers. And so with those 3 vitamins, A, C, and D, A should be preformed, and you can get the synthetic, and I'm not into synthetic vitamins, but it's still very useful right now. And now C, recommend liposomal, 5 grams prevention, 15 grams for addressing it, and divided throughout the day. And then D, 5,000 to 10,000. I prefer the higher range. Some people want to go lower. I would say 10,000. Okay, so that's what to include. Whenever we're thinking about nutrition, we're thinking about the value, we're thinking about what we can include, and we're thinking about what we should take out. Now, do you need to be reminded that sugar depresses your immune function and feeds pathogens? Okay, there's the reminder. Secondly is dairy. Now, we know that dairy has, health promoting effects, it has health diminishing effects, depends on the person, depends on the dairy, but let's look at what it does to the lungs almost to a person, which is it increases the viscosity of lung mucus, which is why we often get kind of phlegmy in our lungs. after having dairy. Now, this is a bad time to have phlegm in our lungs, as we want lung health and lung immune function to be at the highest level possible. So this is a great time to take out sugar and dairy as we're adding either food sources or supplements of A, C, and D. That's the nutritional approach. Now let's talk about herbs. As I've said before, that no one has experience with this. A lot of people are putting together some really interesting rationalized guesses because based on phytochemistry, based on a bunch of things, and those are interesting, keeping an eye on them. I'm not ready to embrace any approaches until I've seen them actually work more than just in a petri dish. Now let's talk about generally working on a human's resistance. Now this is important. I want to talk about one of my favorite things, and I know you've heard about it too, and that is medicinal mushrooms. Now this beautiful one was harvested by me and some people up in the gorge. This is one that I bought online. This is a Ganoderma lucidum. This is a Ganoderma organensis. They're reishi mushrooms. Get some reishi mushrooms, get the slices. Your Chinese herb store has them, your average, your Western herb store has them. You can get it online from Mountain Rose and a lot of other places. Don't go out and buy mushroom supplements if, when you turn the jar over and look at the back, if it says mycelia biomass, those should be the first thing that you're always looking for in a mushroom supplement to avoid, because that is not going to give you the medicine that has been historically validated, nor clinically studied in research, nor in practice. You want to make sure you're getting the actual fruiting body, which is the mushroom, not the little bits of threads that are mostly rice at that point, okay? So, and you want to make a broth out of this. And the broth that I'll share with you the recipe, I'll share with you the proportions, I'll talk to you how to do it. It's going to be this mushroom. The second piece is going to be astragalus. Astragalus is one of my all-time favorite herbs. It comes to us from Chinese medicine, but it's been incorporated into Western herbalism and been embraced by all of us because it's so amazing. What it does is it boosts the immune system. It's also known in Chinese medicine as energetically being a lung qi tonic, so a warming, stimulating tonic for the lungs, and it really is. It's amazing. And so it's a perfect remedy for this condition. There's some good scientific support for reasons why, but we can talk about that at a different time. Let's talk about the third thing I put in there is licorice. Licorice is also a lung qi tonic, among other things, and also a spleen qi tonic and other things. It also has beneficial effects on balancing immune function, and it also maybe even stimulates certain aspects of the immune function that will fight off viruses. It's not particularly antiviral exactly, but it does help us fight off viruses. And the fourth thing that I put in this broth is ginger. Now, ginger is a stimulant expectorant. It thins lung mucus. It is relaxing to smooth muscle, which is very important in this condition. And it also is anti-infective in and of itself. So ginger, licorice, astragalus, and reishi is my core for an immune broth. And then at the last 15 minutes, we add some very strong aromatic culinary herbs. Now, those are also stimulant expectorants, so they encourage the flow of mucus up and out, and that's why they're so useful and beneficial, and they're all antiviral, they're all antifungal, they're all antibacterial. And so that's what people are dying from. They're dying from the condition turning into pneumonia when all that tissue is sitting there at the bottom of the lungs, sort of pus and fluid. It's at the bottom of the lungs with immune function trying to clear it out. The immune system keeps attacking. Now we have other things coming in and persisting, other infections, and our alveoli, where we do our gaseous exchange, can't breathe, it's being damaged, and that's what pneumonia is when we get secondary infections in a situation like this. So between our own autoimmune situation where our lungs are being attacked by our own cells trying to clear out these pathogens, and by the pathogens themselves, and by the sort of all the gook that's produced in there, that's how we die. That's what's causing people to die. So when we recommend stimulating expectorants, that's going to help with that process of keeping things moving upwards and outwards as we're putting anti-pathogenic stuff, anti-pathogenic compounds from these aromatic plants up through our lungs. So the aromatic plants are generally of three categories. We're talking about mint leaves, so rosemary, thyme, basil, oregano. We're talking about, and a bunch more, and we're talking about allium roots. Now we're talking about things like onions and garlic and stuff like that. Not exactly roots, but you know what I mean. And then we're talking about carrot family roots. And carrot family roots are things like osha and angelica and stuff like that. And so when these are put into the soup, in the last period of time, they will generally express most of their volatile compounds into the liquid, and from there we can run it through our digestive tracts by drinking it. It's nourishing, supports the immune function, supports our resistance as it goes through the lungs. It pushes things upwards and outwards. Now, I'm not telling you which one of those herbs is going to be the one that's going to kill this pathogen, because that's extremely reductionistic thinking. We have to work on ourselves. Let's talk about the Chinese formula for 1 minute. And I know I'm talking quickly, trying to cover a lot of ground in a short period of time. And I apologize if I'm talking too quickly for you. It's going to be all in the blog, so you'll be able to check it out on the website. Okay, the Chinese formula that people are talking about, that I've been researching and looking at and thinking about, is a combination of some locally fairly accessible herbs here in Portland. And one is, it's called Forsythia. It's a small bush, maybe about 10, 12 feet tall. It's in flower right now. It's beautiful yellow flowers. And so there's 2 parts of Forsythia fruit. And then there's 1 part of honeysuckle vine, which is called, the type they use is Lonicera japonica, and then it's 1 part of one of my favorite top 10 plants, which is Baikal skullcap. Now, I love Baikal skullcap. It's got some amazing properties that make it very beneficial for this condition. If you want to find out more about it, reach out to me. We'll just say really briefly that the flavonoid in this, so from a modern perspective, the baikaliin is antiviral, it's also anti-inflammatory, and it's also strongly, well, we can say a lot more about it, but a second property of this is that it is a tonic nervine, the Baikal skullcap is. And so this is not your typical Western skullcap letter flora. This is Scutellaria baicalensis, and I use this because it's antiviral, sure, great, but because also it is balancing to the immune function on various levels, kind of keeps an excess oxidation down, and improves oxidative stress when we need it. Now that's really interesting amphoteric effect that this has, meaning it helps the body go in whatever direction it does. Vitamin C does the same thing, by the way. These are both, I would say, antioxidants and oxidants, depending on dosage, depending on bodily need, depending on the circumstance. I think they're both amazing in that way. And that's what we want, because fighting a disease is both, first you want to kill the pathogen and destroy the tissue with oxidative stress, and then you want to clear it out and stop the damage with antioxidants. So I love Baikal skullcap for that purpose, and I love vitamin C for that purpose, and there's a lot of other herbs that will do that, but this one does it remarkably well. This herb also is a tonic nervine, meaning it will help you deal with the mental impression, the emotional impression of challenge, difficulty, stress, as it's not sedating, it's not going to put you to sleep, it's not going to make you drowsy, it's not going to make you feel fatigued, and it's also not going to be stimulating. It's a tonic nervine. It doesn't work on the physical response. That's called an adaptogen. That's different. This works on the mind, thinking, emotions, and cognition. Okay, it works wonderfully well. Now that's very important in this condition, because a lot of people are getting stressed out if we already didn't have enough to worry about. And stress, you know this, it reduces immune function. And as we try to protect ourselves and the ones we love and our planet and everything else and the environment from this condition, we want to ensure that our ground state, our resistance, they used to call our terrain, is it's most resistant to this infection. And so calming the mind, and in a way that is supportive to mental function and not suppressive, is a great way to deal with that aspect of lifestyle. Let's also talk about the other 2 pieces of lifestyle, and that is movement and sleep. Which of those 3 to you do you feel is affecting you the most? That's where I recommend you think about changing or adding a 3rd piece to the way that you approach this. So we have nutrition, we have the herbs. Now this 3rd piece is thinking about lifestyle, because after all, we're getting these conditions. These diseases are leaving animals. They're starting with a disturbed ecology. They're entering into animals, they're leaving animals, they're coming into humans. This is happening at an accelerating pace that parallels what's happening to human health in general. Have you seen this? Because we have definitely seen this, and we're hearing this more and more, is that younger people are showing up with more conditions, and yet they're doing more things for their health at the same time before they get the conditions. So it's harder and harder to be healthy as human health declines for lots of reasons you can probably guess. Toxicity, declining food value, increasing stress, and others. and this happening over generations. So this disease is not going to be an anomaly. It's not going to show up and be this thing and then it's going to never happen again. This is happening at an increasing rates. How many is this now in our area in the last 20 years? 4 or 5. It's increasing, okay? There's going to be more. And chronic infections are increasing too, right? You've heard about Lyme disease. It's a global epidemic. Have you also heard about Babesia and Bartonella and Epstein-Barr and chronic cytomegalovirus? And we can go on, rickettsia and on and on and on. There's a bunch, and they're becoming a problem not because they themselves are changing only, because every disease, what we call pathogenicity, how bad it is, how much it's going to harm us, is based on how we're doing and how strong the pathogen is. And in this case, what we can do is focus on our lifestyle to create the system that will not just resist this pathogen, but will also address what's coming down the pike and also address these other things we mentioned, like declining food value and toxicity. So if not now, when? I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy to change the way we live. I know it's not easy to change our habits, especially with so much going on and stress, and if we already have health issues. But the importance of it cannot be overemphasized at this juncture in time. And like I said, if not now, during a global pandemic with pretty serious implications, this is no joke, then when? Because keep in mind that this disease is affecting vulnerable populations. And so we want to take care of those people as best we can. And also know that in the future, it's not just going to be vulnerable populations. It's going to be everybody. This stuff is happening, folks. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, and I don't want to be an alarmist, and I don't want to be a fearmonger, and I definitely don't want you to give away your civil rights and be forced into taking a pharmaceutical that may be more dangerous to you than the disease itself. So use your critical thinking when that time comes, and it's coming, because there's a huge race right now with people with dollar signs in their eyes trying to come up with the best vaccine for this. So it's happening, and it could be forced down your throat. So be aware. I'm not saying I'm pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. That's not the point. I am pro-intelligent investigation of these things so we all know what is best for us. So if we're empowered in this circumstance to make decisions based on what we know from available, useful, reliable, trustworthy data, and we can have a good conversation about it, and we take care of ourselves, we take care of our lifestyles, we can go a long way into embracing the future that we want, because we know how important our health is. Our health is the basis of everything else, of how we live moment to moment, how we show up for those we love, how we accomplish our dreams and our goals. So if we can embrace now is a great opportunity, we can think about something I love to do. Last thing I'll say about this before we talk about what people can do, particularly if they're a vulnerable population, is I like to think about times like this, or just kind of any time I want to make a change, as a challenge. I love 30-day challenges. I can commit to 30 days. Most people I work with can commit to 30 days. Can you commit to 30 days right now to work with one of those aspects of lifestyle? To support yourself, to protect people around you, to protect your community, your family, to perhaps work in a new lifestyle change that will help you live more vibrantly in the now. Because your immune system is not sitting out there in the universe and you don't take herbs for your immune system. Your immune system is part of your body. And everything that you do, someone's saying something to us, I don't know what it is, it doesn't matter. So if you can do these things to take care of yourself, if you can take action now, then it's going to pay dividends in all sorts of ways. So that's the last thing I'll say about that. Now, what to do if you're someone if you're in a risk group. All right, friends, we lost a little bit of footage there, but we can make it up right here. So now let's talk about what to do if you're in that 17% of people who maybe have a higher risk of serious complications. So as we said, this virus is no joke. We understand that it's got about 2 to 3% mortality rate. And of course, that number, that percentage goes way higher in certain sensitive groups. So to be very cautious, we like to think of 2 plans. Number 1, the prevention plan. Number 2, the reaction plan. The prevention plan is the same remedies and formulas and lifestyle stuff, but following that closer to the letter and really doing it for the sake of ensuring that your immune system function you have is optimally thriving. Number 2 is exposure reduction. So really being aware that the most important way to avoid this, obviously, not to build your immune system, is to avoid the pathogen. And due to the tricky nature of this thing and how it spreads in ways that we're unaware that it's spreading, we just don't know where it is. I just saw a report coming out today that said maybe up to 90 million people could be infected in this country in the near future. And so We just don't know, not to be a fearmonger, but to exercise sort of this caution and really err on the side of caution, is to reduce potential exposure routes and use great hand hygiene and infection control on your own, and self-quarantine if you're able to, and get people to help you out, get people to run errands for you and get groceries if that's something that you are able to do. So that's reducing that. So that's the prevention plan. Right? The reaction plan is a different thing. The reaction plan is what you do right now is you contact someone in your community or someone in your social group or network who can come to where you are and drive you to a medical provider if the stuff gets to that place, if the disease manifests and symptoms show up and you're not able to care for yourself. So number one about that is establish who's going to do it. That's number one. Call them, talk to them now. Don't wait till after you get sick. Talk to them now, see if they can agree to do it, and make sure that their stuff is on and ready. And at the first signs of something going on with you, alerting that person saying, hey, got a little tickle, not sure where it's going to go, just letting you know, keep your stuff on you. Number two, establish a plan written down where you're going to go. Which local medical provider is your go-to place? Get their phone number there and have 2 backups. That's 3 total. So before going to those places, you have your care provider or you give them a call. Ask them, if this disease gets to a place where there are a lot of people getting infected, local medical providers may very well get overrun and have a long wait list or not be accepting new patients. You don't want to go to one only to have to get put into an ambulance and get brought to another and waste more and more valuable time. So call ahead, see what their situation is, and then go through your list, your top one, your second top one, your third top one. And then, okay, you have your person, you have where you're going, then you need to establish your criterion. What does it look like for you? At what point is it? Because this thing can go south really quickly into pneumonia, and pneumonia can go really south quickly into some really significant lung damage and worse. So the idea is for you to make the decisions while you're still feeling okay. So at what point does a scratchy throat, a little dry cough, lead you to take that next step? So you really have to establish that precise place, and don't wait, and do exercise on the side of caution to take care of yourself. So as we mentioned, get a hold of your person. First of all, establish a person. Second of all, establish a location. Thirdly is as soon as you start to feel under the weather in any way like that, that you contact your person and say, hey, this could be happening. We're going to do a little watchful waiting here and see what happens. You're going to increase your dosage of herbs and supplements and just get things moving and see if you can fight it off. But if you can't right away, that's time to enact your plan, be on the ready. And so you are taking care of yourself in the most effective way. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that you and your loved ones are all safe through this, and that we get through it and we learn the lessons this virus and this virus outbreak is teaching us about taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other. All right, till next time, friends, we hope this helps.